Okay, today we're starting our segment that deals with classification or phylogeny of different organisms. In this case, it's the classification of mammals, okay? Because one of the aspects that we would talk about is, remember before the dinosaurs, we had different classifications of reptiles, arachnids, arthropods. Well, arachnids are arthropods. Insects, and then there's actually crustaceans in there as well. And then we finally ended up with, wasn't the Hynerpeton, it was Euparkerias where we left off with that because that was the design that was a precursor for the dinosaurs. So what we do here, all of these animals are chordates in the phylum Chordata. They're in the same class, which is mammals, but then we start classifying them into different orders because of the characteristics that place them in that order. Okay? One of the reasons that we feel it's so important at this level is so that we're ready for that in zoology for those of you who take that class. So what you're going to see on the papers that are handed out to you, this is especially important for those of you who are in track because we will go over these while you are gone so we can keep going. On the back side of this paper, you have your vocabulary for this. I see it's, oh, this is the one that's upside down. Okay, so on the back side, you have your vocabulary here. But on the front side, okay, what you would see is starting with this first one. Okay, Monotremata or monotremes. I don't know if you can see. Maybe if I held it up here, you might be able to see it a little easier. So where this information, some of that is already on there. So what you'd want to write down is they have waterproof fur. Oh, no, that's on there already. You'd want to write that they have webbed feet. The flattened tail is on here. They've got a wide bill. And for some odd reason, nature had selected these animals to still lay eggs. Okay? Because in this class, there are mammals that still lay eggs. There's mammals that give birth to live, premature young that develop in a pouch. And you'd be familiar with those types of animals, which would be an opossum and a kangaroo, and koala bears are probably the most common. So when we see this, this is the order. These are the characteristics that place them in that order. Then the last one is going to be an example of an animal that belongs in that order. Okay. So the monotremes or Monotremata, the duck-billed platypus and the spiny anteater. These are the characteristics that put them in this order, and probably the biggest distinguishing characteristic then is this: mammals that still lay eggs. Okay. Then the next order, as you can see, the marsupials. Okay. We gave examples of that just no more than a couple moments ago. Okay. Opossums, kangaroos. Okay, koala bears would be in there as well, because what's happening is these are, even though they're live young, as you can see, they're immature, so they're going to develop inside the mother's pouch. Okay? For some reason, nature selected these animals. Okay, we're going to give birth to live individuals, but there's a struggle for survival for these animals to crawl into the mother's pouch, and that's where the milk would be located for these organisms to, or these offspring, I should say, to gain the nutrients that they need, which would probably be high in protein, sugar, but especially fats. For those of you farmers who are possibly going through the calving season right now, what happens is as the cow is giving birth to her calf, it's important that that offspring gets up to the mother's udder as soon as possible, because there's such a high concentration of proteins, sugars, and fats in that mother's milk, because what that has to do is put on a lot of weight in the first few days of its life. So that way all the metabolic processes, I suppose you could say, for that organism can then start to take place, but especially the sugar and the fats needed for energy for these organisms. Okay, we'll just look at one more, and then we will stop there for today. I don't have a due date for this vocabulary. We'll see how this unwinds with the microbiology section that we're doing. I think the E. coli is going to be all right. It's the ML that we've attempted to transfer. It's just not growing on the Petri dishes, but the E. coli is. So we'll have that opportunity for those of you who are here on Thursday. We'll continue that process in the lab, and then on Friday, then we'll have our first opportunity where we are all here. The last order then for today, okay, is insectivora. So there's no surprise that you don't want to just know this order just because of feeding on insects, okay? The only flying mammal, like of course the bat, those also feed upon insects as well. So we have this order, feeds on insects. This is mainly for probing through the soil. So with that pointed nose, it's much more efficient for ferreting out insects, as you can see right here. And for the most part, a lot of mammals do have a high metabolic rate, and a good rule of thumb is the smaller the animal, the faster the metabolism is going to be. And to make sense of that, especially when you think of hummingbirds, really small animals, I understand we're talking about birds, but in this case, their metabolic rates are so high that their heart has to continually beat for maybe 300 to 400 times a minute, just because their metabolic rate is just so high, of course. All right, so that gets us a start on the classification of these mammals down to the order level, because for those of you who take zoology, we go down to the family level. So you go past the order and then down to family levels as far as categorizing. And then there's also more than just one class of animals that you would be responsible for. So this is a good way to get good practice and understanding on how we classify animals, not only at this level, but especially for that in zoology. All right, so that's all I have. Work on your vocab today, and we will catch up to you next time.